Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Um, Thank you for this opportunity. And our group here will present about the feminist criticism by Lois Tyson. Next slide. But first, I'm going to introduce myself and my members. My name is Kezia Marsha William.
My name is Dita Ayu Larasati.
My name is Mikael Teguh Prasetyo.
And my name is Noviana.
Okay, so here are the table of contents that we are going to explain. The first we have introduction, and then traditional gender role, and then getting beyond patriarchy, French feminism, multicultural feminism, gender study and feminism, and the last but not least, feminism and literature. Next. So the first part I'm going to explain is the introduction part. Feminist criticism examines the ways in which literature and other cultural productions reinforces or undermines the economic, political, social, and psychological oppression of women. A feminist critic holds many different opinions on all of the issues, and their discipline examines. Yet many of us who are new to the study of feminist theory, both male and female, have decided ahead of time that we are not feminists because we don't share whatever feminist point of view we have found on the mass objectionable. Next slide. And then here we have traditional gender role. Traditional gender role casts men as rational, strong, protective, and decisive. They cast women as emotional or irrational, weak, nurturing, and submissive. Many people today believe such inequalities are a thing of the past because of the anti-discriminatory laws have been passed, such as the law that guarantees women equal pay for equal work. Yet many of us who are However, these laws are frequently sidestepped. For example, an employer can pay a woman less for performing the same work as a man or for doing more work than a man simply by giving her a different job title. And patriarchy is thus by definition sexist, which means promotes the belief that women are innately inferior to men. Next slide. When talking about patriarchal, everything that concerns men usually implies something that are usually negative about women, and being real man in patriarchal culture requires that one hold feminine qualities in contempt. It is important to note too that the patriarchal concept of femininity, which is linked to frailty, modesty, and timidity, disempowers women in the real world. It is not feminine to succeed in business, to be extremely intelligent, to earn big bucks, and to have strong opinions, to have a healthy appetite for anything or to assert one's right. Homosexual, for example, it is included on the list of feminine behavior for at least American men. This phenomenon implies that whenever patriarchy wants to undermine behavior, it portrays that behaviors as feminine. Next slide. To briefly illustrate the debilitating effect of the patriarchal gender roles on both women and men, consider the story of Cinderella, the role of Prince Charming, which requires men to be wealthy rescuers responsible for making their women happy ever after. It is a destructive role for men because it promotes the belief that men must be unflagging super providers without emotional needs, and the similarities among the ever popular Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, or the Sleeping Beauty, and of course Cinderella in all three tales. A beautiful young girl for females must be sweet and young if they are to be worthy of romantic admiration. Is rescued, for she is incapable of rescuing herself from a dire situation by dashing a young man who carries her off to marry him and live happily ever after. And then the next slide will be presented by my friend.
Getting beyond patriarchy. Feminists have been working to overcome patriarchal ideology for a long time and have proposed different solutions. One way to do this is to recognize that no ideology can fully control everyone all the time, and there are always contradictions that can be identified and used to decrease its influence. Example of women resisted patriarchal ideology include Mary Wollstonecraft, Virginia Woolf, and Simone de Beauvoir, as well as the current feminist theories. Feminist criticism often incorporates elements from psychoanalytic and Marxist theory, as well as other critical theories in order to better understand issues relevant to women's experiences. Psychoanalysis can help us understand the psychological effects of patriarchal ideology and how it is internalized by both men and women. Marxism can shed light on how economic forces have been used to keep women oppressed. Structuralist principles can reveal underlying similarities in the experiences and operations of women from different cultures. Reconstructions can be used to identify ways in which a literary work can consciously reinforce patriarchal ideology. The next is French feminism. French feminisms can be divided into categories: materialist feminisms and psychoanalytic feminism. French materialist feminisms looks at the societal and economic factors that oppress women, such as patriarchal beliefs and laws governing marriage and motherhood. Psychoanalytic feminisms French feminism psychoanalytic theory examines how patriarchy affects women's psychological experiences and creativity. It focuses on individual psychology and believes that women's oppression is not limited to economic, political, and social domains, but also occurs at an unconscious level. To achieve lasting material liberations, women must liberate themselves psychologically. Simone de Beauvoir book, The Second Sex, create the theoretical basis for materialist feminism. Despite her not identifying as one, she observes that in patriarchal societies, men are seen as independent and women as dependent. Men can act in the world and give it meaning, while women are defined by their relationships, men and seen as inadequate in comparisons. Thus, the word woman is equivalent to other, and women are not seen as fully developed human beings like men. Therefore, also argued that women are not born feminine, but are conditioned to be so by patriarchy. Helen Chixus believes that language reveals patriarchal binary thought. It's organized the way we think by seeing the world in terms of polar opposites, one of which is considered superior to the other. This kind of thinking assumes that women are passive and inferior, while men are active and superior, defining women by heart, mother, nature, palpable moon, and passivity, while defining men by head, father, culture, intelligible sons, and activity. Sixes argues that we need a new feminine language that undermines or eliminates this patriarchal binary thinking that oppresses and silences women. Julia Kristeva, she argues that femininity cannot be defined, but is marginalized and oppressed like the working class. Kristeva sees the biological differences between men and women as social differences because of their concrete effects on women in the real world. The issue is not the definitions of biological differences, but rather the social meaning that accompanies them, which is controlled by patriarchy. Stefan and other French feminists do not believe in distinction between sex and gender, as patriarchy treats them as same thing. France also does not have a spread word for gender like English does. And the next slide will be presented by my friend.
The next is multicultural feminism. Here we will focus on feminism in America first. America being a country with the most visible position of leadership in women's movements, America finally recognizing the ways in which their policies and practices have reflect their own experiences while ignoring the experiences of women of color, lesbians, and poor, and also the undereducated women both in America and throughout the world. Next, please. Here, the first is patriarchy as every woman is matter. All women are subject to patriarchal oppressions. Each woman's specific needs, desires, and problems are greatly shaped by her race, socioeconomic class, sexual orientation, educational experience, religion, and nationality. Patriarchy operates differently in different countries, even within the borders of a single country. Cultural differences affect women's experience of patriarchy. Here's the American patriarchy. The first patriarchy for women of color that is focused on experience of racism, lesbians' experience of patriarchy, that is the experience of heterosexism, and also for women's experience of patriarchy, that is experience of classism. We have Black feminist analysis here. Some cultural groups have their own categories of literary criticism, and that some women may find their concern addressed in more than one category. It might be useful to pause here and note what some of those categories are. The first is American patriarchy of color. A Black woman is oppressed by patriarchy. Black feminists observe not just because she is a woman, but because she is a Black woman, a category that has been defined historically in America as less valuable than the category of white women. The second is the Victorian patriarchy of color. The Victorian ideal of the true woman as submissive, virtual, and sexual pure, which still influences patriarchal thinking today. Next we will discuss about the gender studies and feminism. Here's the gender influence. Our gender strongly influences how we are treated by others and by society as a whole, as it embodied in such institutions as the medical profession, the law, the educational system, and our culture's hiring and employment practices. The society's heterosexual assumptions about sexuality and gender. Here's the assumption. The first is male are naturally masculine and that female are naturally feminine. That gender has emerged as a field of study in its own right, devoted to this and to all topics pertaining to gender. Next. Here's the relation between feminism and gender. Feminism and gender studies are intimately related. For centuries, feminism has worked for gender equality, for a dissolution of the patriarchal gender roles that even today continues to short circuit effort to achieve complete equality between women and men. And gender study is working to broaden our understanding of how complex the concept of gender really is. Here's the complexity of gender. American gender system is binary system, which is consisting of two genders. The first is masculine as male and feminine as female. Those two genders are considered polar opposites. If someone is not one or the other of these two genders, then there must be something wrong with him or her. And while in other cultures with some multiple gender system consisting of more than two genders, for example, Native North American has 3 or 4 genders. The first is woman, and the second is female variants, or variance gender roles adopted by biological females. The third is male. The fourth is male variants, or variant gender roles adopted by biological males. Next slide will be presented by my friend.
Feminism and literature. Next slide, please. The most important details of Lindy Loman woman patriarchal and ideology are the ways in which the female characters in Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, 1949, function as tokens of male status, validate the Loman man's sexism, and have internalized patriarchal ideology. A feminist reading of Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eyes 1970 might examine how the novel invites us to criticize the sexist behaviors and attitudes it portrays, and how gender issues intersect with race, as seen in the young soulish hatred of Darling. The novel also shows the importance of sisterhood to women's survival when women are victims of violence. Next slide, please. Feminist literary criticism is a way to promote our appreciation of women's value in the world. Three of the Madonnas of the novel, Caroline, Justine, and Elizabeth, all of whom devote themselves to nurturing others to the point of sacrificing their lives for them. Victor's behavior is in service of the traditional woman's desire to shape herself as husband, and the novel does not invite us to criticize misogyny or xenophobia. Mary Shelley's conflicted response to patriarchal ideology is reflected in her own conflicts with her late mother, Mary Wollstonecraft, who violated patriarchal value when she eloped with a married man, Percy Shelley. Feminist issue runs across cultural, social, political, and psychological categories, and feminist criticism is important to understand women's experience. So that's all for our group presentation. Thank you.